But if you change the engine out, you change the suspension, you get it a little bit lower down, you make all these modifications, then it can perform at a higher level. And it's kind of like that in fly tying. If you can take a great pattern and you can customize it to your liking.
This is Untangled, fly fishing for everyone, presented by Ventures Fly Company. Hey everybody, welcome to it. This is episode 16, the big one of Untangled, fly fishing for everyone, presented by Ventures Fly Company. And you are with me once again, your intrepid host, Spencer Durrant, and I am joined, like I promised, because I keep my promises, I'm joined by the VFC Brain Trust. Alex, right here. Alex, say hi to the people.
What's up?
And we've got Bertrand, no. Bernat, no.
Like shots fired.
No, Berkeley, that's it. Yeah, we got Alex and Berkeley. That's who's with us on the show today.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, we've been teasing this little episode 16 here for what, like 5 weeks now, something like that. So it's a little bit of a big deal, but like I promised, we've got some fantastic stuff for you guys today. So grab your Diet Coke, because I figure the only way that we're actually going to get sponsored by Diet Coke is if everybody starts drinking Diet Coke.
Bro, it's Coke Zero. Way better.
Okay. Whatever you want. Just grab it. Make sure it's a Coke product of some kind.
Coke products. I love it.
Don't they make Dasani?
Oh, yeah. It's like the worst
that's
water
nasty
ever.
water. Yeah.
Smart Water, I think, is also a Coke product. That's better. Yeah.
Okay. What does Coke not own? Would be a better
Mountain Dew, unfortunately.
I'm well aware of that. Trust me. Were you guys with me? I was eating somewhere and the waitress was like, we don't have Coke. Is Pepsi okay? And I said, I don't know. Is communism okay? And she didn't think it was very funny. So unfortunately.
You guys want to talk about fly fishing?
Yes, Bertrand. We'll get right down to
This is why we call him Bertrand over here.
Oh, no. Today's show, we are going to be highlighting a bunch of fantastic, fun new products. And I'm not just saying that because Alex and Berkeley are sitting right here. They're actually a lot of fun and they are brand new. But it's all fly tying related. So if you've been I'm going to borrow a phrase here from my buddy Hank Patterson, fly curious of late, and you have always wanted to know, like, hey, what's going to this fly tying stuff? Or you've seen people tying flies and it seems like they catch more fish than you do. Well, you're in for a treat, because we're going to go over all sorts of fly tying stuff today. We're going to talk about a brand new fly tying kit we've got. You order it and it is everything that you need to get started tying your own flies. We've also got some Baker's Dozen tying packs and a beginner material pack as well. But I want to flip it on over to Alex and Berkeley to share everything about the products. They've been the ones that have been busting their butts getting this stuff ready for everybody to have in their arsenal. But Alex, you have a little bit of a yarn to spin for us about how we decided to go down this road. I mean, what made us want to go from producing epic YouTube shorts to producing epic YouTube shorts and high quality fly tying materials?
Well, I mean, it all started one day. I mean, I fly fished for over 15 years, and I'm on Instagram. I see a lot of fly tying tutorials, and I've always been curious about fly tying.
You've been fly curious?
I've been fly curious. And to me, it just seemed a little overwhelming. I mean, for example, one of the very first times I wanted to tie a fly, the thing I did right is I was like, you know what? I know that a zebra midge, it looks pretty simple to tie. And
hardest fly out there to master. Only attempt the zebra midge after you've done 5 sex dungeons with your eyes closed.
Even Spencer can tie it.
Only on a good day.
And so I was like, all right, let's try a simple pattern. And I headed to the sporting goods store after, I probably spent like 30, 45 minutes trying to look up what materials I actually needed.
Yeah.
And I headed over to the sporting goods store and I walked in. I was really excited. I was like, I'm going to tie my own fly and I'm going to catch a fish on it and it's going to be awesome. And I walked in and, oh man, all that excitement turned into straight panic. I mean, if you've ever been to a sporting goods store or fly shop and you've looked at the fly tying materials, it can get overwhelming real quick.
How many animals died for this wall to be here, right?
Yeah. And it's not even just like the feathers and the fur and the hair and the whatever else there is, but there's, I don't know, 200 hooks, 20 different kinds of beads. And that's just colors. You got different sizes. You got
they're countersunk or they're slotted.
Tungsten, brass. And so it's a completely unfamiliar world. So I walked out of there and I didn't want to come back. And so I threw, I don't know, 4 different sizes and types of hooks in the cart. I threw a bunch of different beads and I walked over to the cash register and it's like, beep, beep, beep. I spent like $100 to tie a zebra midge. And I was like, well, they say this fly tying thing's fun, so this better be worth it. And I went back to my fly tying desk and my kitchen table.
Yeah.
And I had all these materials and I didn't know if I even had the right one. So I had to get online again, check them out. And luckily I did have the right stuff. But it was a terrible experience. I mean, I was frustrated. I was confused.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where this was born was I mean, here at VFC, we always say like, we make fly fishing easy. And I was like, well, like fly tying's not easy.
No,
that's
no, it is certainly
not. So that's where all this started. And so we wanted to solve the problem of I am a complete beginner. I wanted to start fly tying because it seems fun. It seems like I could probably catch more fish. And so how do we make that easier?
Yep. And that's kind of been the genesis behind all of VFC anyways. It's how do we make this more accessible for folks who want to get into it? And I did a bad job of introducing both of you guys too. Alex and Berkeley started this whole enterprise. This is their brainchild. This is their baby. I'm just the eye candy for the videos is all I am. So no, I'm hopefully a tiny bit more than that, right?
You are.
Yeah.
You're great.
Just that much more. Not much more. Anyways, so this is their stuff. This is Alex and Berkeley's stuff. They see this issue and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna solve this problem for these beginner anglers. We're going to help out with catching, and now we're going to move on to actually helping out with the fly tying process too." So, what do we have in terms of products, fly tying wise? Walk us through what we've got here.
Yeah. So, the question that we were really trying to answer, as we've already been talking about, the entry point to fly tying is it's already so hard. And we were just trying to make it
frustrating than like fly fishing itself, don't you think?
Yeah. And it's like unfamiliar territory. You might be an advanced angler, but just because you know all that about fly fishing already, now you go into fly tying and it's like arts and crafts.
Pheasant tail's actually tied with pheasant tail?
Yeah.
No way.
Yep. Right.
Right. And so we
and
tried
a woolly
to dissect.
bugger has no wool. I've been lied to.
It's not a woolly mammoth.
Unfortunately, no. I think the greater environmental community would frown on mammoth fur. Just like you can't use real seal fur anymore. Okay, you can. You just can't get caught. All right. Anyway, sorry, Berkeley. Continue.
Oh, you're fine. So we just tried to like dissect the beginner's experience of getting into fly tying, and we tried to identify the biggest pain points. And through doing that, and through studying all the different fly tying vices and all the different products on the market, we tried to come up with the best solution that we could. And this is what we have in front of us. And we're really excited to present it. And, we don't want to get into the products too much. We want to provide as much value as we can here in this podcast episode about getting into fly tying and whatnot. But, we've spent a lot of time on these products, and we definitely want to at least present them to you. And they might be something to consider if you're interested in getting fly tying after this episode. But first and foremost, we came out with a 360-degree rotary vise. We call it the Flysmith.
What's the whole point of 360-degree rotary? What's all that?
Before we even get into that, like a vise, it's just a fancy hook holder. Like
that's what I wanted to call it. We were brainstorming names, and I was like, the hook holder. Well, that's two on the head, don't you think? Well, it's the point across.
Right. So it's kind of like a nifty little tool to add the 360 rotation to the vise, because it makes the tying experience more enjoyable, because it rotates around the axis of the hook in 360 degrees. So say one of the techniques that you'll do is you'll wrap material around the hook. And so instead of wrapping it with your fingers, you're able to lock your bobbin holder into place so the thread is away from you. And then you can actually wrap that material onto your hook. And so
your big fat sausage fingers aren't trying to fold this stuff over. And then your kids come in, Daddy, why are you saying all those words? Well, I'm trying to tie this fly now. Shut up. Right. We wanted to eliminate that issue.
For the record,
well, right?
Spencer has no kids, so he doesn't really do that.
Do you have one on the way?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't announce it on a podcast.
That would be so sweet. Can we announce it on the podcast?
This is a gender reveal. That's why he said the big one.
No, I'm never doing a gender reveal. I will vote differently than I do now before I do a gender reveal. Okay. Oh, so we've got the vise. What else we got?
So we also thought, well, you're going to need scissors. You're going to need, Berkeley said, bobbin holder. That's basically what holds the thread and what you use the most to wrap your thread around the flies. And there's a lot of funny named tools that bodkin, whip finisher. It's a foreign language to a newbie. And so we have all the tools that you need in a complete set. So we have a little toolkit. And so not only do you have the vise that's going to hold the hook, but you also have all the tools that you'll need to cut the materials and wrap thread and etc.
Could I tie a snot whistle with all the tools that come with this?
What is a snot whistle?
Do you have a picture of one?
Wait, no, I got that confused with the snot rocket and the meat whistle. I'm sorry. I got two streamer patterns mixed up in my head.
I love the name meat whistle for a streamer.
It's such a great.
The first time I heard it, I think I cried.
Yeah, I think we both did.
It's so great.
It's so funny.
But yeah, could I tie a streamer like that involved?
Yeah.
With it. Oh, sweet.
You could. Yeah. We really tried to make it so one of the taglines we use is it's all the bells and whistles of a premium rotary vise, accessible for a beginner.
Boom.
So we really tried to answer the question, like, what do I need to get started?
Yep.
And make that easy. You need a vise, you need tools. Boom.
So
there you go.
We got all our vise, we got all our tools. What else do we have?
I do want to say the toolkit, what makes it pretty special is they're premium tools.
Yeah.
Like I went down the rabbit hole on tools. I learned more about scissors and bobbin holders and whip finishers than I ever even thought was possible. And
yeah, he did.
Yeah, he was riding nerdy.
Yeah. 100%. And so like tungsten carbide, super tough metal. We made the scissors out of tungsten carbide. That's pretty abnormal. I mean, there's a lot of tungsten carbide scissors out there that are like $75. And that's pretty nuts. So
before anybody gets too excited and is like, I need one of these, what's something like this going to set us back?
TBD. We're going to launch it on April 9th.
April 9th. So you'll be able to find out.
And you will find out how much it's going to cost there.
But based on our other pricing, I don't think you're going to be priced out of this one. No. So yeah, we try to make it accessible.
Accessible for beginners.
Yep.
And I mean, so you got the vise, you got the tools, you have the stuff that you need to actually tie the fly.
All the materials.
But you do need the materials, right?
Yes.
You need hooks, you need beads, you need feathers, you need
chenille.
Hair, chenille.
Yeah.
Yeah. All sorts of stuff. And instead of just throwing a bunch of random materials together, we wanted to pair it. I mean, so you need the stuff to tie the flies. but you need to know how to tie the flies, right?
Yes.
And so what we tried to do, or what we did, is we crafted our beginner fly tying material pack around our fly tying masterclass.
So we got a beginning material pack and a fly tying masterclass. So I get all this stuff, and I'm not trying to decipher all my instructions out of a book or nothing. There's actual videos and such that I got access to.
Not only is there actual videos, but we have a method. It's called the BITS method.
Can you say that again, please?
The BITS method.
Okay.
BITS.
BITS. All right. Method. I misheard you the first time.
Beginner to intermediate technique stacking.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're getting fancy.
Yeah, that's a little too high.
Berkeley, would you like to explain that?
Sure. And
you're the one who
before we get into that, like, before we get into the whole material thing, just to add on to the tools and kind of what we were saying before, I thought I'd add this. When we were studying beginners, and one of the traps that people kind of fall into is they end up buying lower quality tools and a lower quality vise, and then they have to end up buying twice.
Yeah, like a year later, they're like, wow, I'm really into this tying thing, and these are crap.
And so you'll see
more vices than I'd like to.
Ask anyone with any experience in fly tying, and they'll highly recommend that you don't buy a kit. They'll say buy all the individual tools, buy quality, buy a vise, and it's an investment. These things are going to last. But if you buy the inferior products, because there's a lot of them, unfortunately, out there in the market, that can be a common pitfall and trap.
And that actually motivated us, right? Like, we heard don't buy a kit multiple times, and we're like, well, let's make a kit.
How do we overcome that objection? And so that I thought I'd just add that to our tools. And as well, just getting into the BITS method. It was something that we kind of came up with. It's kind of a fancy way of saying that techniques, there's a lot of different techniques that go into each fly, and each pattern has different materials that you'll put onto it, in different like techniques that it calls for. And we tried to identify, we kind of like went through all the different patterns that are out there, and we tried to identify what are the most common techniques that we're seeing. What are the common trends? What are the commonalities that we're seeing here? And as we put that together, we identified, was it 31?
33.
33 different techniques that people needed to learn to advance quickly from a beginner to an intermediate. And then after doing that, we're like, all right, how do we teach those 33 techniques in the quickest way possible?
Yeah.
And we basically like looked through all the different patterns, starting from the easiest possible pattern, the San Juan worm, which requires like a pinch wrap and a whip finish. Then all the way to advancing, what's the last fly?
Parachute, or no, it's an elk hair caddis.
Elk hair caddis. We're going to learn how to use hair.
That elk hair.
And it's pretty neat.
Yes.
In a short amount of time, even after tying only 10 different patterns, you're already an intermediate. And I know that sounds like a far-fetched statement, but it's really true, because you'll have practice on all of those different techniques. And by the end of those 10 flies, you'll have learned those 33 techniques. And then you're quickly within reach of those intermediate and advanced techniques and patterns, advanced patterns and the techniques that are called for there. So that's kind of the thinking behind it.
And so that's exactly what the beginner fly tying material pack is you have all of the materials you need to tie those 10 patterns. And you can tie 6 of those flies each. So it's 60 flies, 10 patterns.
Yeah.
And through tying those 60 flies, through tying those 10 patterns, you go from beginner to intermediate.
That sounds awesome. It sounds a lot easier than trying to read through Jack Dennis's Great Western Trap Flies Volume 2. And not a slight against Jack at all. I know Jack. He's a great guy. But those old tying books are sometimes hard to decipher, especially the ones, I think he wrote that one back in the 80s. So things are just a little bit different.
Well, and nowadays it's so much more accessible to tie flies, right? Like if I want to tie a pattern, I can look up a recipe and I can watch, there's video tutorials on it.
Yes, there is.
And so it's not like I read a story from Tom Rosenbauer and the GOAT,
Yes.
And he was talking about his very first experience tying flies, and he had to mail in to get the materials. There was like terrible instructions. He ended up dipping that dry fly in head cement because he thought it would make it float. And so
Yep.
it's a lot easier nowadays with video. And we hope that this masterclass makes it even easier.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. Guys. Is there anything else on the gear side that we want to get into, or the gear tying supply side that we want to get into before we jump into some questions about fly tying?
There's an additional product. We can kind of cover that on one of the later questions. I think it kind of fits into
All right. So I went ahead and grabbed some questions about fly tying that I reckon newbies will have. If you have any other questions about fly tying specifically you'd like answered on an upcoming episode of Untangled, well, you know how to get a hold of us by this point. Carrier Pigeon, Pony Express, they both work in Wyoming. But the easiest way to get it to me, especially to avoid the grizzly bears eating the Pony Express on their way to me in Wyoming, is the little link in the podcast description. It says submit a question, and you click it and you submit it. So it's.
Can I give them your cell phone number?
Yeah, it's 911. Okay. Ask for Durrant. They'll know.
We'll tell the editor to throw in your number right at the end of the video.
I will string Devin up a tree at that point. All right. Okay. So first question, and I think this is kind of the biggest one, is tying my own flies worth it? Is it worth this effort? Is it worth buying all this extra stuff? I've already bought a rod, a reel, waders, nippers, floating, leader, tippet, a sling pack. I've got polarized sunglasses. I've got whatever. Is it worth getting all this stuff too?
Yeah. So I think it's going to definitely depend on the person and how enthusiastic they are actually about fly fishing. I would say that you're kind of taking on a hobby within a hobby. I think that's a true statement.
I think it's fair. Yeah.
But I would say yes. And here's why. I think that there's a number of reasons that come to mind. And I'm sure there's several other reasons I could come up with if I thought about it for a little while. The first is you'll be a better angler. I think whenever I study like any of the great anglers, they almost always tie their own flies. And
I do tie my own flies. You're right, Berkeley.
I said the good anglers.
Yeah. And that's why I
fight.
Okay, Bernice.
Fight.
And I think that there's so much nuance to fly fishing. That's one of the things that makes it so great.
Yep.
Is it's such a challenge. You have different environments. You have so many different aspects to master. And it really does take a lifetime to master fly fishing if you ever could do that. And one of the areas that has so much nuance is fly selection. Learning about entomology, learning about the fish's behavior.
Yep.
Learning about all that different things. And I don't think there's a better way to get into that nuance, to get into those details than to learn fly tying. Like you'll never be able to get into those details to learn about all the different flies and all the different options that you're going to have when you're out on the water and what you can use. And then by learning how to tie.
Well, and I think you can. I think you can get to that point. It's just tying, I think, speeds the process up because then you're like, okay, well, I want to tie some new stuff. What do I tie? And then you kind of go down that rabbit hole of, well, what's a last chance cripple? What do I use that for? What's a comparadun? What do I use that for?
I think it makes you answer the why question a lot more.
Yeah.
So it's like, why am I tying this fly with a 3.2 millimeter bead versus a 4 millimeter bead?
Yep.
Like, oh, I want it to get deeper in the water column.
Yep.
And so I feel like there's a lot of whys that are being answered as you're tying your own flies.
Yeah. Well,
versus just picking them out of a bin or buying them online, right?
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, like you do not have to learn how to tie to be a very successful angler. Like you can definitely buy flies and be very successful. There's so many different patterns that you can buy out there.
I mean, you're just not going to be as cool as the rest of us, but I mean, if you're fine with that.
That's a given.
Yeah.
But I kind of liken it to, buying like a stock car. Like, for instance, if you had a stock car, your 0 to 60s, like maybe it's pretty good. Maybe it's built for that. But if you change the engine out, you change the suspension, you get it a little bit lower down, you make all these modifications, then it can perform at a higher level. It may be a little bit better than the fly was already doing, but that marginal difference can make a huge difference. And it's kind of like that in fly tying. I feel like you can take a great pattern and you can customize it to your liking. You can add a tungsten bead, you can add a heavy wire, you can lengthen the hook, you can shorten it, you can like add rubber legs and attractor qualities to an already great pattern. Like that's one of the great things is you can use your creative juices to use what you already know to enhance your fishing experiences and find more success doing that.
And then another point is it's fun. Like
it can be, yeah. Sometimes it's really frustrating.
No, I will say like today we're here together.
Yeah.
We're going fishing tomorrow.
Yep.
Pretty excited. But leading
in the
up
wilds of Idaho, by the way, because all the fish drowned in Wyoming.
Yeah,
remember?
we don't go to Wyoming.
Yeah.
That's terrible fishing.
Yeah, all the fish drowned.
Yeah. And so leading up to this trip, I knew there were some patterns I wanted to tie, but I'm trying to wrap up the masterclass. We got like April 9th, it's going live. Running a business here, you know?
Yeah.
Good old
I may or may
Stars.
not have stayed up till 1 o'clock tying flies last night.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why you're so full of it tonight, huh?
That's going to be so embarrassing when you don't catch as much fish.
I don't even know where I am right now.
But that is one thing that's hard is it takes time. It is fun. I like Sunday afternoon, grab a Mountain Dew, kick back, watch something,
grab
football.
Grab a what? Excuse me?
Mountain Dew.
No, wrong sponsor.
Sorry, Coke Zero.
There we go. There we go.
And I do enjoy it. It brings out creativity. Like Burger was saying, I get to modify flies how I like them, but it does take some time. I mean, it is a little bit stressful when I don't have many flies in my box right now because I haven't been able to tie that many.
Yeah.
So
can be frustrating.
But overall, yes, it's worth it. It's fun.
Yeah. No, I think it's worth it too. It's been.
Yeah, you've been tying longer than we have. Do you think it's worth it?
Yeah, I do.
And I think I'll add, it's kind of like a way to enjoy fly fishing even more, like because it's almost like two hobbies.
Yep.
And sometimes you're too busy. Like life is life, and it gets in the way. Sometimes you're not able to go to your favorite spot, and you have to.
Sometimes there's somebody from Colorado in your favorite spot.
Sometimes
right?
it's a crazy winter like we've had this year, and
Colorado
it's the end of
anglers,
March,
we do
and
love you.
we haven't even been able to get out very much. And so it's kind of like,
speak for yourself. I got into blue wings.
It's true.
Yeah.
You need to come up to.
No, you don't.
To Idaho or wherever you are.
Southern Montana is where I was. Right.
But it kind of like fuels the fire. It's like the more I fly tie, the more I want to fly fish. And the more I fly fish, the more I want to fly tie. And it just like keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. Yep. And it kind of fuels that passion, I feel like.
No, I think it does. So let's jump into this next question then. I think so. We've covered, tying's worth it, but here's the big thing. Okay, I've already spent some coin on all my stuff, and it's getting more and more coin every day. It feels like. Certainly not looking at you, Wyoming Gas Company, for jacking our natural gas rates through the roof this winter. Anyways, it isn't tying flies expensive. Like that's for people who, again, to borrow another quote from Hank Patterson, like you need like gold bullion, like hot dogs with good pork, right? If you're going to tie flies, like that's the life. That's the bracket you need to be in. Or are you actually going to save money tying your own versus buying them at a fly shop?
So this is controversial. This is a controversial topic. So,
well, we never cover controversy on Untangled, so we might as well.
I feel like it's math.
No. So
you would say that
in
Berkeley.
theory, is it less expensive to tie your own flies? Yes.
Yes.
I can buy hooks. I can buy. And so let's say, for example, the zebra midge. I talked about my story earlier.
Yeah.
I wanted to tie a simple zebra midge. If I bought one pack of hooks, I bought thread, I bought wire, and I bought some beads. And I figured out how many flies I could tie with that.
You're probably into that $20 for all that stuff.
20, 25 bucks.
You're getting 25 hooks, so you can tie, assuming you don't screw it up, you can tie 25 flies.
Yeah. So we're looking at like $1, maybe $1.25 a fly.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, like it's pretty affordable. But here's the deal. You're gonna walk in to that sporting goods store, or you're gonna see that really cool pattern on Instagram or TikTok.
Or Lance Egan is going to tell you about this new dubbing that you have to have.
Yeah.
And soon enough, you're just going to start signing your paychecks over to fly fish food like I did when I lived in Utah.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have a bin that is just full of stuff. And you're like, I use this to tie one pattern.
Yep.
And so in theory, yes, it is less expensive. But I mean, Berkeley, you tell them your joke.
Prepare for poverty. I follow a Facebook group that's like for fly tying, and that's like always the response that they give, like beginner fly tyers. What material should I buy? Is fly tying expensive? That's the common response is prepare for poverty.
Yeah.
It's kind of true. It's kind of not true. And just to touch on kind of what Alex was saying, it's in the short term, it's most definitely more expensive to tie flies.
But in the
Usually,
long run, you
but
have
in the long
a bunch
run,
of bulk.
and with a caveat that you stick with only a couple of patterns, you're
The ones
probably
you're
going
actually
to save
using.
money.
Yeah.
But if you're anything like me or any of us, and if you scroll Instagram, you're kind of doomed because you're going to want to tie all these different patterns. And
Well, I talked about this on a couple podcast episodes a while ago about how you really kind of come around to fishing about 24 different patterns, and that's about it.
after you try 100,
Well, maybe. I mean, if you have to, but like I'm tying on hackle. I still have capes I bought almost 20 years ago. I'm still tying off of some of those capes. Now the quality is not super great at this point, but I ain't spending money on a new cape until I have to. So in the long run, it does work out for you. I believe.
Well, and that was kind of the inspiration behind these, right? So another product plug.
Yeah, a little bit.
But Baker's Dozen Tying Pack. So let's say you wanted to try out a new pattern.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to buy the bulk material because you're like, I don't really know if I'm going to tie this often. I don't know if the fish in my neck of the woods like these flies.
Yep.
So I want to try out a new pattern. So we're like, well, let's just divvy out the materials. We have some awesome high schoolers that help us divvy out all these materials, and we buy the materials in bulk, right?
Yep.
And then they divvy it up, and it's enough to tie 13 flies. So
hence the Baker's Dozen name. I don't know if you guys caught that. A Baker's Dozen is 13.
Correct.
Yeah.
You must be an English teacher.
I'm explaining it for those listeners who might be in Rio Linda is what I'm doing. So.
And so we just thought, either if you're thinking about getting into tying, maybe you already have tools, you already have a vise, you're already kind of into tying, but you want to try a new pattern.
Yeah.
Boom. Super easy way to do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, consensus. It's going to be a little bit of expensive endeavor to start with your fly tying, but it's going to be worth it, especially if you think you're going to stick with all this stuff after a while. And worst case scenario, you don't do it. Okay, you buy all this stuff. You're like, I hate this. I'm gonna buy my own flies. You put all your fly tying stuff away. Well, you get busy, and you get hitched or whatever. Either your wife gives birth to a kid or you give birth to a kid if you're of the female persuasion. And then, that kid grows up, and then one day the kid walks into your storage room and is like, look at all the fluffy stuff. I want to play with it. And then you're like, oh yeah, the fly tying. And then you teach them, and then boom, next thing you know, they're skipping school to go fly fishing. All right. So you've contributed to society.
Right, where you want them.
Exactly. Degenerate and hooked on the only drug that won't kill them. Right. Fly fishing. That's where we want them. So
I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
And I work with kids, so I can talk about that. Right. Yeah.
That is approved.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Well, I think let's, we might touch on one more question. We'll see here, but, another one that I've heard commonly from folks who are just getting into this whole fly tying experience. How hard is it to tie flies that actually work? Because you'll see what the fly should look like, and then what you tie is not going to look like that fly. It's going to take a few times to get it down. So, how hard is it to actually tie flies that are going to work, that you're not just sitting there wasting your time and all of your Coke Zero at the vise?
Yeah, that would be a tragedy.
That would be a tragedy.
So there's two parts to this, right? So one, which patterns are you tying? And two, does the fly need to look perfect? I talk about this in the masterclass quite a bit, but the fish care a lot less than your followers.
Yes, they do.
If you scroll the gram, if you're on YouTube, those flies, they look absolutely perfect. And you're like, wow, you make it look so easy.
It's like when you're going on a date, right? You button your shirt all the way up so you don't get scared away by your chest hair, and you actually floss. Same concept,
Same
right?
thing. Yeah. Exactly.
You might even take a shower. Yeah.
Ooh. Profound. And so that's the two things to consider. Number two is it doesn't need to look perfect. Like if that fly somewhat kind of sort of looks like a bug, you're probably going to catch fish unless you're in Colorado.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Colorado, which I mean, sorry, Colorado, but I've fished there a few times in size 24 midges with that certain shade of gray. It's not my.
Don't forget the 9X tippet either, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 9X. And you think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding.
You can't even see it when you're holding it.
It's angel hair is what it is. If you break it, you're not going to heaven. I'll tell you that much.
And so if you're not fishing those super pressure tailwaters or those super pressure tailwaters, the way that the fly looks, it doesn't need to look perfect.
Nope, it doesn't. And that's something that I've come across a lot too. One of my buddies, Mysis Mike, I think I've talked about him before. Heck of a good guy. He some of the best days he's ever had, some of the best days I've ever watched that guy have on the water. He's sitting there fishing a Griffith's gnat that had been chewed down to nothing but the thread. And he was catching more fish than me. Now he'd catch fish out of a storm drain. But you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's kind of the saving grace, I guess, of all this. So I wouldn't worry too much. Tie your flies up, get them out there. It's way more important how you present that fly than the fly itself.
And the pattern, right? So that's back to number one is, am I tying a pattern that's effective where I'm fishing? And like, for example, a zebra midge, one of the easiest flies to tie. I have yet to find a waterway where a zebra midge hasn't been effective.
The whole state of Colorado?
I have caught fish on a zebra midge in Colorado.
All right.
It's not that bad.
I'll back away from my Colorado.
Colorado, we love you. It's just easy to make fun of.
Yeah, it's like Montana too. It's just like you guys are begging to be poked just a tiny bit.
I was there a month ago, and I'm like, I'm going to head out this afternoon. It's a Wednesday afternoon, and I walked out to the water. There's a dude in the water. I'm like, all right, I'll walk around the next bend. Couple sitting there, fly fishing, walk around the next bend. I saw 5 other anglers in the river, and I was like, all right, today's a tie-in day.
Wednesday afternoon. Don't people have a job around here?
We hiked 2 miles in snow.
Yeah.
It was like knee deep.
Yeah,
it was like an hour and a half, maybe a 2-hour hike.
That was hell.
To a 3-hour remote location. And there was 7 or 8 anglers there already.
Yeah.
But it's 7 a.m. But I think you guys nailed that on the head. You know, it's pretty amazing. There's so much good information to learn about fly tying out there. It's kind of hard to go wrong when it comes to following these people's instructions. You know, I would recommend learning from a lot of different people and just really following along their videos and getting it down and practicing that pattern a couple of times. And you'll be surprised. It's actually pretty easy, especially after you've mastered those fundamentals. Like it's real. You'll be able to tie pattern's plenty fine and reasonably well to catch fish, no problem.
Well, gentlemen, I think that brings us to the end of the show here. I think we're ready to wrap it up. So
the big one.
I hope the big one delivered in all the ways that you anticipated. Hope your wildest dreams will all come true. And April 9th, all this wonderful merch you see here goes up. So definitely keep an eye out on the VFC socials, our email, etc., because we'll be bugging you guys to pay for our next fishing trip. So, no, in all seriousness, hope you guys found this very informative. And any other fly tying questions, please shoot them on over.
Please, we love questions.
Yes, we do.
That is why we are alive, is to answer fly fishing questions.
Yeah, and drink Diet Coke. Yes.
Coke Zero.
I've heard of both ways.
Coke Zero. That's way better. Leave a comment if you think Coke Zero is better than Diet Coke.
All right, we'll do a poll. We'll make it happen.
Sounds good.
So, all right, well, thanks, Alex and Berkeley, for doing this. And
Thank you, Spencer.
Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody,
See y'all.
Till next week. Highline.